Hello there, Lynx here, and welcome to Encore Summer. It's another one of those itch.io free games. It's crazy how I have one in the folder, then I move around to check out the devs, basically itch.io page, and I find more games, and that's how we ended up here. I mean, it looks cute. Let's check it out. Also, I think it is a part of a bigger thing that will eventually be released, so that's gonna be interesting. I mean, I follow them already, so yeah. Let's check out this one then, shall we? Why am I in long sleeve for in the middle of summer? I guess it's because night. I don't know, I got used to record like that. Anyway, the crisp spring air had fallen to the humid warmth of summer several months ago. Each year it felt like summer was arriving sooner than it was ever meant to. Okay, that's a cute cat, by the way, there. Also, it's walking. Okay, limbs of neighborhood trees had long since taken up their green blanket, but were now begging for rain to quench a deep thirst. A warm light breeze pulled the fabric of a summer uniform from my skin, a whisper to remind me that the peak of summer was here. Also, there's something that's bothering me with the... That's a bit too fast. Okay, now it works. I mean, it's still a bit too fast. Yeah, for once, by the way, I got the music kind of correctly to be lower. For me as well. Even though the birds are super loud. Did I read this line? Yes. Probably. Summer break. I remember summer break, yeah. Wait, okay, my scroll is messed up for some reason. By the way, for fuck's sake. Wait, what if I go... No. Okay, we are back. So, I don't know, like, I scroll back and it goes not back afterwards. It's annoying. I need to replace this mouse finally. Anyway. This is the line I read, yes. Voices from my fellow students rang with excitement as they planned their vacations. The quintessential part of their students' lives were on the tips of their tongues. Okay, can I get those lower as well? Exactly. As for me, I was no different. Although quietly I was making a few plans of my own. But nobody needs to know about that. What I really wanted from my summer vacation was to watch the fireworks with my crush at our local summer festival. Damn. I wish we had summer festivals and such things here. I wanted to share the festival food with him. Wait, with him? What? Are we a girl in this game? I had no idea. I want to play games together at the stalls with him. I want to confess to him beneath flowers blooming in the sky. I just want to be beside him, like always. Rays of light waved me down. I was exhausted from the unusual school day, but took the long way home anyway. Light glittered through the leaves, where it rained down on the concrete around me. I walked through the puddles of sunlight towards the place that felt brightest to me. Hideki's house was in this direction. The two of us often walked home together since we didn't live so far apart. On days that we weren't walking together, I still liked to pass by his house, a little ray of sunshine before returning to the turbulent squall. I boldly declared to myself each time that this day didn't mean I was a stalker. I mean, you kind of were. It just felt that it just felt that if I didn't stick to this small ritual, I'd lose any connection I had created with him. A silky coat of white shimmered on top of the wall of his neighbor's home. A beautiful pale cat stared at me with oceans in each of its round eyes. I reached out a hand to pet her. She loved it, but stayed only long enough for a few brushes of my finger through her soft, fine fur. When she left, it felt as if a little bit of me had as well. I was sad to see her walk further down the street. While picking up my books from the sidewalk, I heard the voices of a couple of rounding the corner. My fingers paused around the spine of the composition notebook when I heard his laugh. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Meh. Nothing special, girl. A smile that tugged gently at threads, bending my heart each time that I witnessed it. It was before me, once again. Beside him was a girl that I didn't recognize. She didn't look so different from me. Perhaps she was a little taller. Her hair just a shade off from mine. Her face seemed a little unfamiliar. Her pale sundress, half hidden beneath a sheer cardigan, was nowhere close to our uniform. Likely she didn't go to our school. So who was this mysterious, stylish girl? Somewhere in my mind, this stylish and cute girl was already being qualified as a threat. Although I had never had the chance to feel it before, I knew immediately that this feeling was jealousy. Although, I should have... I mean, I read a little bit about the game, but not that much. I mean, the fact that I didn't know that the MC is a girl is one thing, right? But now I'm curious, is she also a childhood friend as in the last game we played? The first date, basically, or what? I mean, if she's a childhood friend, right now we are being shown what I hate about childhood friends. So, you know, okay, so he's a classmate of hers. And okay, there was no information about that really. I think. I don't see anything like quickly picking. Anyway. But I bet she never made a proper move. So yeah. When had I become so unconfident? Oh, it's you! He waved me as soon as the words departed from the smile. I realized how odd it must have looked for me to be standing in front of his house, with my books on the ground. Judgment crawled around in the pit of my stomach. Hastily I waved back. My fingers quickly found their way around my books and clutched them to my chest. My feet wheeled around to find their way back home and out of the situation. Jealousy needed a swift decision. I was willing to try again, when I was better able to get a hold on my feelings. I tried again. I wasn't ready to confess to him yet. Ugh. Come on, girl, you can do it. I mean, it's now or never, really. You're clearly in the losing position for... Even though I felt like I needed to, I wasn't ready. My eyes watched the road ahead, careful not to look back until he called after me again. Where are you headed? That's too good of a voice for him. Where are you headed? No, that's an old girl, old lady. Whatever. I thought it was a stupid question, but my heart beat faster, just for knowing that he was talking to me. Clutching my books a little more tightly to my chest, I allowed my eyes to wander back to the two of them. Did I do something wrong? No, of course not. As I turned to face them properly, the girl next to him stepped forward, her hand pressed against her collar. Hello! I'm Chiba Mitsu, a friend of Hideki's. Tsukiyama Yuri, also a friend. For now, you should have added that one. My focus returned to the person of interest in this strange party. Sorry, you didn't do anything wrong. I just panicked because I thought it might look strange to be standing here. I saw a cat and decided to stop and pet her. Almost as he accepted my true excuse, Hideki nodded. Still, he looked for a beautiful cat that he clearly wasn't going to find. Well, we're just about to go to the cafe for some lunch with this being half day and all. Would you like to come with us, Tsukiyama-san? An olive branch. Even so, the fact that she bothered to invite me along was proof enough that she didn't see their outing as a date. Another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that he had been under the impression that it was. Yeah, I'm just here to get my wallet since I forgot it at home this morning. How do you not carry your wallet with you? What is wrong with you?
It's a good thing we didn't have lunch at school today.
Right, my thoughts exactly. Foyt felt reluctant. He added on to her offer. You're more than welcome to join us, like she said. I thought that if I could see more of their interactions together, I might be able to decipher the type of relation they had with each other. Maybe my jealousy would be unfounded. For I may have been intruding on his advances, my curiosity got the better of me.
That sounds great. Thanks for the invitation.
I would not go, to be honest, I would not go. I kind of can realize how crushing her feelings might be if they are actually, you know, going out together and so on. Like, you will get that inside, girl, really. Shadows gathered on the wood's planks, where the sunlight refused to pull, each piece of shade offering respite from the afternoon heat. Mitsu suggested they take the outdoor sitting for the recently opened cafe. Hideki and I both stared awkwardly at the setting. 4 chairs gathered around a square table. The indecisiveness on which seat to take ate a hole in my stomach.
I'll grab some menus, be right back.
Without skipping a beat, Mitsu took a seat and patted towards the chair across from her.
Let's sit across from each other, Sugiyama-san.
Even such warm inclusion made me feel a little colder. Hideki took the seat to the left of her when he returned. My books took the 4th seat like a guest of honor in their own right.
It's so interesting that this place has outdoor seating. I saw it on the way home last week and just had to pay a little visit.
I turned the menu card to the back and spied a few sweet treats. Exactly what I would need to get through this encounter.
I was thinking about having burger and fries. What about you?
Yeah, that sounds healthy. I hate myself that I actually think that right now. In the past, I mean, I would be like, yeah, that sounds delicious. Now I'm like, ugh, that sounds healthy. Sarcastically said. Then again, I mean, once in a while, why not? His eyes peered over to her as he asked. The fact that he wasn't looking at me made me feel a little left out. It would be the only time it happened during our excursion fall. Really? And you fell for him? Really? Girl, come on. I couldn't get out my head. It was clear that he liked her. A small young waitress, probably just out of high school, came to our table to take our order. A strawberry parfait from the bottom of the menu was my battle armor of choice. My eyes were glued to Hideki as he made his choice. Eventually all of us had ordered and received our food. The conversation in between barely included me.
So, are the first year classes at the college really difficult?
Oh, she's older. Mitsu shook her head. Soft blonde locks looked like silk against the brilliant sunlight. If I were to say, the first year was the toughest, to be honest. The next years were easy as heck.
It's a bit like having art class all day.
I guess that depends what you study as well.
Oh, well, I suppose it might be different based on the subject you take.
Man, my teacher always harped on how to be hard in college.
That's bullshit, by the way.
It's hard to believe with how it teaches us. With how.
It's bullshit. College is easier than, before schools. Maybe because you are basically, drifting around one area and don't have to, study 5,000 different subjects. I think that might be the case. Anyway, I couldn't stand to look at the two of them talking together anymore, so I pulled my focus to the clouds drifting lazily in the summer sky. If I could just gather the courage to invite him on that day to the festival, then maybe I could convince him that I was a choice worth making. Yeah, please don't do it now. I need to convince him to give me a chance. If I didn't tell him how I felt, I didn't think I'd ever get the chance again. The closer he got to her, the harder it would be.
So, how is the parfait, Sugiyama-san? I heard this place makes delicious parfaits when I was reading the reviews.
Or, Sugiyama-san, I have even a better suggestion. Hideki to the side to go after Mitsu. That's a better option. Her gentle voice pulled me from the lazy clouds and the storm of thoughts.
It's okay, I guess.
Moving my cheek from the hand I was resting it against, I decided it wouldn't look good in front of Hideki if I gave a half-hearted answer. Bringing the group down could do no good. The strawberries are really good. I like the candy glaze they used on them. However, the cookies got a little soggy by the time I reached them. I mean, I guess that would be my only complaint. It's a pretty solid parfait.
As expected of you.
Fire burned beneath my cheeks as he finally directed some attention towards me. Really? Because of that? It didn't take long before he continued his puppy eyes at her for.
She's who you come to for recommendations on food. You takes it all very seriously and has probably tried every restaurant in town, right?
The warmth on my cheeks continued to grow until they felt molten. I knew it wasn't exactly praise, but it certainly felt like it. How did that feel like it? What? Girl, you are so far gone.
Not all of them.
I couldn't tell him that I valued food so strongly because I didn't have much to eat at home. The money I received from extended family on holidays was always put towards eating. Okay, I eventually started eating at restaurants because the kitchen was never clean. Even if it was, the restaurants kept me from having to return to that husk of a home. What's going with that story? I'm curious now.
If you ever want company when you go, I'd love to try some new places as well.
See, this will work out, girl. Mitsu is already into you. Was she trying to make friends with me? No. Something more. I wasn't exactly looking to make friends with her, but I couldn't think of a nice way to turn her down. Instead, I nodded and made up a reasonable excuse.
I mean, I've already spent all of my money for this month, so it'll be a while before I can go anywhere else. I'll be sure to let you know the next time I go out for.
She smiled at me as she took out her phone.
Then, can I get your name on Messenger?
Hesitantly, I pulled my phone from the pocket of my skirt and showed her my messenger ID. Pale, slender fingers slid across her screen. She typed the ID into her phone.
I'm sending you a message.
A notification appeared across my home screen and I clicked it to see her message.
Hey, I don't want to go out with Hideki, but you caught my eyesight.
God damn. Yeah,
I'm interested, okay? From the moment I saw you for the first time.
Anyway,
I'm glad you joined us today. It seems like you don't like me very much right now, but I hope we can be friends one day.
She smiled at me once more before picking up her bag.
My dad worries about me if I stay out too late, so I have to go home now. Thank you for inviting me. Let's do this together again soon.
You mean the two of us, right? Her similar blue eyes found mine and she focused her attention towards me. Something is cooking.
It was nice meeting you, Sugiyama-san.
You don't want me to walk you home?
I finally met her eyes, completely as she stood to leave.
I'm okay, really. I walk through here all the time. See you next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
I muttered quietly, but I was sure she had heard my sentiment. Hideki waved just a little long with a smile on his face as she left. It was just the two of us left. I didn't know what to say to him. He didn't exactly come to talk to me either. We eventually stood up to go inside and pay for our meal. He paid for both of theirs, and I was left to pay for mine. Which is no different. Why did you ask me to come then? Which is no different from what I expected from the trip anyway. I guess this is it for today. I asked him as we left the cafe and stepped once again in the summer sun.
I guess so. Later, you.
And you are not going to ask me if I want to be walked back home, you bastard? As he began to walk off, I grabbed the sleeve of his shirt. He stopped and turned to face me, a look of concern playing across his face.
Sorry.
I released the thin fabric and tried to push myself to look him in the eyes.
I actually wanted to ask if you are free on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, sure. Where you want to go to the arcade again? You still have the high score, but I'll beat it this time for sure.
No, it's not that.
I pressed my thumbs together and stared at my feet. Come on, girl. You can do it. You can do it.
I thought maybe we could go to the summer festival together.
Should I invite Mitsu, the two of...
No.
Hot tears threatened to turn into rain. My defeated voice only carried so far. The black pit in my stomach became heavier, heavy enough to fall to the ground beneath my feet. It took me a moment to pick it up and gather my words again.
Today. I was feeling a bit left out today, so I thought we could spend time together. Just the two of us.
My face became so warm that it interfered with my thoughts and words. I couldn't keep the words from escaping, even if I didn't mean them.
Not like a date or anything, but still.
Why would you say that? Don't say that.
Just the two of us.
Hideki nodded his head, a lovely blanket of bangs and hair falling from those tucked behind his ears. Alright, Sunday it is. Just text me that what time we should meet up and where.
This time, I know that in return.
I'll talk to you then. Later, you. A smile I couldn't hide had been brought back to life. Even if I told him it wasn't a date, it would still be one to me. I knew I had to use that day to confess to him. It was frightening. Such a lovely, frightening thought. I knew that with Mitsu in the picture, I might have little time left to do so. Okay, good. You know what? In the first date, I like the fact that he was like, no, let's not ask her out somewhere else in 5 days and confess. Because I feel like in this case, she might still chicken out. Over there, the guy was like, yeah, I mean, sure, let's go under the tree or whatever, right? But he was like, let's do it now. Finally, after all those years. But yeah, anyway. I mean, hopefully she will confess. It wasn't like I didn't want him to be happy for. I just wanted to be happy too. I wanted him to be happy with me. I mean, I would say that's a natural feeling, to be fair. On my way home, I found that there was a little more pep in my step. I turned down an alley, a shortcut I often used to get through the city during the daytime. A familiar white coat glittered in the trace amounts of sunlight that made it into the valley of buildings. It was the same cut from earlier. It felt like maybe this was a sign of things to come. But downhill or uphill? She must have been hungry because she was rummaging through the garbage. I approached her slowly, hoping I wouldn't scare her by making any sudden noise. I stretched my hand out towards her and nearly found the tip of her nose with my finger. Boop. Okay. I totally expected something bad to happen with the cat there. That's a nice room, by the way. I woke up after a short nap. At least that's what it felt like. Even if I felt refreshed, something didn't feel quite right. Maybe it's because I didn't remember going to sleep. Maybe it's because I didn't remember making it home. No matter what, I couldn't remember. Everything was hazy. My vision was caught up in a deep fog. I thought to myself that maybe I was just groggy. The perspective seemed all wrong. It felt as if I was viewing the room through a tiny window. As I tried to walk forward, I found out that my body also refused to move. At least not like I thought it would. When the door opened, Hideki appeared. It was only at that moment that I realized I had never seen this room before. Oh, what? I peered around the unfamiliar room briefly. Why was I here? My mind was fuzzy, but I tried to focus my attention on him instead. Hideki's eyes looked pained. I had never seen such a look drawn across his soft features.
We still haven't found her.
Huh? What? Had I been talking to him earlier, I couldn't recall a single conversation this would have applied to. When I tried to ask who they hadn't found, the words that spilled forth became twisted on the tip of my tongue.
I'll keep sending messages. I'm sure they'll find her.
Hideki nodded, but I saw the first clenched at his side. What if Mitsu had never made it home? Was it one of his classmates? Did someone from school go missing?
Should get back to searching with the group.
I jumped at the unexpected noise. I could feel my heartbeat quicken. The ringing came from within his pocket. He whipped out his phone and left the room, dragging the door closed behind him with a gentle but detached touch. With only one curtain round of the two in the fashionable room, I could still make out the rays of summer light gritting the wooden floor. It was the kind of room that my younger self would have dreamed of living in. The bedroom was not only clean and neat, it felt like it belonged to someone well off. Someone who didn't have to worry about the same things I did. A suburban princess, I decided. Maybe. Without everything moving around me, I finally had time to think. I began to wonder if I should even be moving around, if I couldn't remember anything after leaving the cafe. What was it that happened in a time that I couldn't remember? Hideki entered the unfamiliar room once more, stepping through the light streaming from between the open curtains.
They found her.
That sullen look on his face told me everything I needed to know about the state of the person they had found, even if I still didn't know who it was. He confirmed my suspicions in the next words.
They found the body.
The body, huh? If I was hearing this news without knowing what it meant, I felt indescribably sad for the person who had passed. Before I knew it, tears were already slipping down my cheeks, as you can see. It was futile to try and rub them away. Even as I thought I was making progress, my knees gave out and met softly with the wooden floor.
We didn't even know she was gone until this morning.
The information that was spilling from my mouth wasn't mine. I had no idea where I was even pulling it from.
No one did.
What happened between the time we left and now?
He shook his head with a sigh, and novel questions written in his eyes.
I must have only just seen her off before it happened.
His hand pressed against red locks on his forehead.
She just invited me out to the festival.
Huh? Wait, what? I mean, I guess the perspective would make sense then, but...
What the fuck?
Man, she was so nervous too. I wish I could have helped her calm down.
Wait, chot tomate there.
How am I the only person who even noticed? She was missing.
He sat down in the chair by her desk and continued to push his hand through rosy hair.
Would you have helped if we had known to look sooner? Could we have saved her?
He's talking about...
Do they know how it happened?
Hideki shook his head again and looked towards the floor. I did the same.
Seems like she may have been sick. They told me there weren't any injuries, but I guess we won't know for sure until they tell her parents the results of the autopsy. She never really talked fondly of them, so they might not even tell us.
Me?
What kind of cruel joke was being played on me, yo? How could it be that I was feeling the floor beneath me and the tears in my eyes if I wasn't truly standing here before him? Even still, the world around me felt wrong, like I didn't belong here. My body didn't quite behave like I wanted it to. While I could move my fingertips and could feel the hand they were attached to, they still moved on their own. And so I finally came to the question, who was I now? It was when this body I was trapped within began moving once more that I caught the reflection in the window of the unfamiliar room. She didn't look so different from me. Perhaps she was a little taller, her hair just a shade off from mine, her face seemed a little unfamiliar. Chiba Mitsu. A bad dream, that was my first thought at least. A reasonable conclusion anyone might come to in a situation like this. But there's always that dual feeling that real life has, an elusive feeling that's completely unmistakable. It's much different from the feelings that dreams carry, both good dreams and nightmares. A curse for my jealousy. Another thought, as children we absorb cautionary tales and folklore that includes these kinds of things. Because I was jealous, I would now have to watch as the girl I had anger toward took away the guy I fell for. I would be powerless to stop it. I mean, is it that for the curse of jealousy? I wouldn't say that, but maybe that's it. Right? I told myself this over and 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 over. It had to make sense. It had to. I couldn't accept it if it didn't make sense. Damn, she was cute. In my worst moments, I always wondered how my funeral would go. Who would attend and how would they feel about my passing? What I never expected was to be able to attend it myself. Somehow being here for it was mind-numbingly worse. Hideki and Mitsu sat side by side. At the front of the small and bare room, I could see my mother and father. There were so many people that I didn't know who were in attendance. There were some I did, a classmate or two, and even my teacher. Especially knew my family. Their quiet and sullen faces weren't any different from how they always were. The only time they showed any real emotion was when someone personally handed them an envelope of condolence money. Wait, people do that? Tears streamed down their cheeks until the donor had walked away. Not unlike when I was alive. My family only seemed to care about me when they could get something from it. It was only when they could use me that burden, like me, became useful enough to be noticed. The bare room began to empty, even though barely any time had passed. Mitsu and Hideki were the first to leave. I was forced to leave with them. Even though I was happy to go, the loneliness of the bare room followed me out. My death was a lot more quiet than I had ever considered it would be. Maybe my hopes for who would care after I was gone were too high. I just wanted my family to show that they cared about me at least once. At least someone had thought about me enough to choose lilies. In time I learned how to shut out the outside world. I confined myself in an imaginary white box. At first I tried to fill it with things. All of those ideas and things came crashing down soon after. When I was inspired, there was no place for that effort or energy to go. What use are ideas when you can't try to make them real? Hopes of bringing my thoughts and creations to life had died along with my body. I was a prisoner here. Mitsu was able to live her life blissfully unaware of the extra soul that was being held captive inside of her. At first I didn't want anything to do with her. I kept myself locked away. Perhaps I was just brooding over my grotesque fate. There was no way I could stand to see how happy she was, while my own existence continued to feel so cruel. Now that I think about it, what if we die and our soul goes actually into someone else, yet it doesn't like show up as a personality, right? That would be nuts, actually. Sometime later I heard his voice again for the first time since my funeral. Time as a concept no longer seemed to apply the same way to me. I wondered how long it had been since I had heard his laugh. I had been shut in that blank room for an indeterminate amount of time. Sounds of a busy street came to me like a fog. Mitsu and Hideki's voices rang through it like truth. Rays of light glittered against an empty wood and metal chair. A lonely girl who once sat there felt distant and different. It was almost as if her loneliness had never existed. Or maybe I was just feeling sorry for myself. Nostalgia reigned as I hung onto every word he spoke. Even if they were spoken to her, I could imagine for a moment that they were directed towards me instead. As he told stories of his friends and classmates in school, a smile drifted across his lips. It was this smile that I had never been able to get out of my mind. Maybe it was the part of the reason I fell for him in the first place. Hideki and I weren't even classmates in our first year of high school. It only took half a year before we actually talked to each other for. He had his clique and I preferred to not associate with anyone unnecessarily. After all, I had been bullied in middle school. Wow. For I had managed to escape those who bullied me by transferring schools, I found that it had suddenly become difficult to talk to others again. I'm sure that I came off as a curt or standoffish to the girls who tried to talk to me. To me, it didn't matter as long as I didn't give anyone the chance to bully me again. Maybe because of that, I opened my locker one day to find that someone had stuffed tags through my shoes. Oh, for fuck's sake, seriously? I froze up, immediately reminded of the horrors my previous classmates had put me through when they learned that my family was dirt poor. As I stood there gazing at my ruined shoes, Hideki approached me and put a hand on my shoulder. I jumped before turning around to meet his eyes. He smiled at me and began removing the tags. They pulled in his palm and he spoke some reassuring words.
Don't worry about it. They probably got the wrong locker. Hey, so my friends all bailed on me today. Wanna go to the arcade? It might help you get your mind off all of this.
My heart pounded in my ears and I could feel the blood rushing through my veins. My body quickly began to thaw. Okay, you know what? Now that I think about it, this situation, I kinda can't blame her falling for him then. I wanted to trust him since he was being so kind to me. I didn't know if I could. In this moment of weakness, however, I decided to at least try to see where things ended up. So I smiled back.
Sure, why not?
Now he was in front of a different girl with the same smile. He told her stories of his friends playing pranks on each other, although to me, some of them seemed a little mean. It at least sounded as if they all had fun, despite the severity. Me and Mitsu laughed a lot over the meal. How close have they become, I thought to myself. They were getting along pretty well. That boyish smile of his remained the entire time they spoke to each other. I was happy to see it. I couldn't get it out of my mind. At some point I realized that I was happy just being able to witness it again. Even if I wished that it was actually me he was smiling for. I wish that I could have told him how I felt about him before I was imprisoned here. Isn't it better this way for... He was smiling now more than ever, so it was difficult to argue that it wasn't. But it wasn't better for me. I was lonely. I was sad. There was never a moment that I didn't want to tell him how I felt, even after I had died. I knew my fate, and yet I kept fighting. For the first time in my existence, I wanted so badly to be alive. You could take over, huh? Huh? I hadn't questioned it at first, but the idea that came to me didn't feel as if it were my own. I became aware of my own disembodied voice floating around me. It's kind of what I said just a few minutes ago. That it would be crazy if the soul would end up in another body, right? And you know, behind that thinking was something like, but then, can't this soul like take over or something? Well, it might, I guess. I became aware of my own disembodied voice floating around me.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if I could do something like that. My selfish desires can be worth the life of another.
Why not? You want to live too, right? Everything the voice said made enough sense to nearly sway me, so I pushed it out of my thoughts and tried to forget its tempting words. Okay. Instead, I decided to put more effort in getting to know who Mitsu was. After all, what else could I do to make these painful thoughts go away? It felt like I had wronged her to even think about them. It was difficult watching her life. It was so similar to mine and yet so vastly unfamiliar. It's a nice kitchen as well, by the way. Mitsu's parents, like mine, were natural and foreign. Her mother was born in the United States and her father had always lived in Japan. From what I could piece together from photographs and conversations between the three of them, the two parents had met when her father went to study abroad in America. Everything about their house pointed towards her mother's nationality too. The western-style home was filled with trinkets and food labeled in English. All the furniture and the layout echoed similar statements. Perhaps the most painful thing to learn for was how close her family, Mitsu, was. The three of them sat together for breakfast and dinner every day. Yeah, that would happen only on weekends in my house. They mused over their day to be or the day that was. These were such intimate moments that I felt bad for eavesdropping. I mean, not like it was, like a choice, really. I mean, that's how basically the hours would not align, kind of. Like, my father would always work at 6, basically, start working at 6, which is an ungodly hour. Like, seriously, 6 is crazy. So, yeah, he would be getting up, like, 4:35 and go, and so on, right? My mother basically worked, I think always from 8 a.m. So, the time difference, right? And I mean, and I was always a late person to wake up anyway, so yeah. I guess the breakfast wouldn't be an option there. Anyway. During the rest of the summer vacation of hers, she spent a little time with her friends and more on painting. However, some friends still showed up occasionally. This was the kind of story I wanted to belong to all my life, so I was left thinking again how difficult it was to watch. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it was not your choice, but you've been basically trapped in a body of someone who kind of had the life that you really wanted, right? It's not like she was asking for much, right? She just wanted her parents to be close to her and to actually have friends, like proper friends, and not I guess basically what she didn't have, right? I would say that's the two simplest things possibly. Anyway, let's continue. A girl with friends and a loving family. A girl who lived in a big house filled with possessions and treasures. The girl Hideki looked at. It was especially difficult to watch as her mother helped her to put on an expensive-looking yukata. Oh boy, don't tell me they will go to that festival together. Oh, that will suck to see.
You look beautiful.
That's not a yukata. Her caring tone was carried further in the back. She patted her daughter's hand. Oh, okay.
I put some extra spending money aside for you. When your father is home from work, the both of us will probably go as well. Thank you, Mom. I'll be sure to let you know about all the good stalls.
As her mother smiled at her, I felt jealous again, but this time, it was overshadowed by the overwhelming feeling of being happy for her. After all, Mitsu had a very caring family and I couldn't wish a family like mine on her. Now, thinking positively of the girl I had once thought of as an enemy, my mind was torn. I didn't want to feel either of those things for her. Honestly, I just wanted to forget that she existed. I wouldn't bother her and she wouldn't bother me. But I knew it couldn't be. The doorbell chimed and Mitsu rushed out to put on her geta.
I'm leaving, Mom. Be careful and have fun.
Outside, a familiar face was waiting for her. Ready to go? I had never seen him in a yukata before. It was so much more different from seeing him in his school uniform. Something about it made him look much more mature than I remembered. Did it now? A heart I no longer had aged. Seeing him again like this cemented how much I wanted to make him mine.
I am! It's kind of exciting! I haven't been to a summer festival with a friend in years.
Really? Why is that?
I fell into a crowd of friends who spent their summers away from the city for one reason or another. There are some years I go with them, but I decided to stay home with my parents this year since I plan on moving out soon.
He nodded along as they walked to their destination. The sun was beginning to dip in the sky behind them. Staying in town?
That's the plan for now. I found some cute apartments closer to the center of town. They are closer to school, which makes them really popular. I'm on the waiting list right now.
Oh yeah, I guess that's also a Japan's thing right there. I mean, it's also, I guess, in the other places. But you know, to be fair, if you give a good offer, you are in. If there is no competition and such, right? But I feel like the waiting list in Japan specifically is rougher, right? Anyway.
I'm not leaving you behind, don't worry.
She laughed along with those assuring words.
I have too many people I love here. Leaving them behind this soon would be heartbreaking.
I know the feeling. Back in middle school I thought I was destined to leave this town, but lately I felt more and more like I belong here.
This was my first time hearing his thoughts on leaving town. The thought that he might leave one day had never crossed my mind. I always thought I had more time to tell him how I felt. No, it's actually on full throttle, so... Anyway. To think that I was doing nothing more than stalling for the last few years of my life made me think about the disembodied voice. So it's been years. Okay, so she met him. After half a year she started high school, right? I am assuming she might have been in the last year with him right now. So I guess 1.5 years of waiting, kind of. Maybe a bit longer. Actually, when does like school year start in Japan in actually like the normal year, right? I think. So, okay, it's been 2 years basically, more or less. Given that it's summer festival then, right? And she stalled for half a year. Yeah. I mean, she didn't know him for first half of the year. Anyway. What if I was just caged here until I could put to rest my unfinished business? Or maybe I was nothing more than a ghost hunting the girl who had angered me.
Oh, what made you change your mind?
She clenched her hands tightly against the bag she was holding. For a moment I could feel the soft rope and woven silk on her fingertips. He scratched his head and took a few seconds before answering hesitantly.
Last year something terrible happened during our school's culture festival.
I heard about that on the news. I'm so sorry.
I couldn't remember.
I jumped in and helped where I could at the time. I wanted it to be on the top cleanup crew as well.
It felt so important, and yet I couldn't bring up what had happened in my mind. I was at a cultural festival and yet I couldn't remember anything about it. I couldn't even remember what my class had decided to do for it.
I decided that without a doubt, that I wanted to continue to help the people of our town. That's why I want to be a firefighter. My parents are pushing me to go to college for. I guess I can understand why.
Had he told me he wanted to be a firefighter? My memory no longer felt as reliable or solid as it once did. I couldn't even remember a big incident that had occurred.
That's admirable, Hideki.
The focus on my memory had fallen to find that the two of them were on a first-name basis. For how long? I feel like the first-name basis, being worried about that, is also a Japan thing. Like, over here everyone is on first-name basis. Anyway, night had settled in. The light cast from lanterns became an eternal guide for those seeking fun at the festival. I had invited him to this festival just before I died in order to confess him. It was painful to see the two of them arrive, side by side. I wonder how much I had meant to him if he was willing to take another girl in my place. Part of me knew that I was always going to mean less to him than she did. But I had died. The two of them stopped in front of a stall fitted with cork guns.
Bet I could knock that one there down.
No way! It's totally rigged!
She laughed and patted his arm. Together they stood in front of the toy guns. I wondered if he and I would have done the same. At the arcade we often became a little competitive towards each other. When I earned high score, he felt the need to surpass me. I would do the same for him. I wonder if we would have made even a game like this competitive. Hideki fished a few coins from his pocket and handed them to the attendant before picking up one of the guns.
I'll just have to prove it then.
I focused on him and I knew in that moment it meant that she was as well. Pushing the dark sleeves up his arms, he crouched to find his angle before pressing down on the trigger. The cork hit the center of the box, but it didn't move. With fierce determination, he loaded up the gun again. Only this time the cork hit the left side, knocking it askew. Upright it remained. With the final shot, he used the skewing to his advantage and knocked it off the shelf. Hideki stood up straight and rolled his sleeve back down before flashing Mitsu a thumbs up. Don't do that, please don't do that.
You did it!
Her yukata bounced around her knees and elbows as she hopped up and down and clapped for him. As the stall attendant extended his congratulations, he handed Hideki his prized kill. Hideki then handed it directly to Mitsu.
No, I can take this, it's yours!
I mean, you don't have to, but I won it for you. Besides, I don't have a room for it.
He turned the box to the front and examined it briefly and extended towards her again.
A cocoa mug shaped like a baby chicken?
That smile of his was so beautiful and infectious. Was it now? I wish I could physically laugh. I thought he was funny. Was he now? I love his brand of humor. It must have been a wish worth granting. Laughter poured from Mitsu's lips. Then again, I already said that I understand why she would fall for him back then, right? While I first thought it must be a coincidence, I soon recognized it to have been my own unique laugh. What?
Sorry, I don't know what kind of laugh that was.
She continued to laugh her normal laugh and received a gift from him. It was becoming clear to me that I had some sort of connection with Mitsu's body. Maybe it wasn't the same as the connection she had to her own body, but sometimes I could feel something. Maybe this embodied voice was trying to tell me of this. An odd feeling bubbled up with those thoughts for. It was too much like forcing another person to do something they wouldn't want to do. Exactly. And yet I couldn't help but want to for myself as well. The temptation to try to take control was almost too much to deny, but I had to keep it in check. The light of the stars rained onto the ground below, showering everyone with its simple graces. Were the stars in the sky always this beautiful? They glimmered so peacefully against their dark curtains. Mitsu was looking in this night sky. I wondered what she was thinking. Did she just realize the beauty of the sky too?
Oh man, this food smells delicious.
Mitsu looked from the shimmering veil and back to Hideki before laughing softly.
You've already eaten so much for...
He paused briefly, looking down on the ground with a look in his eyes that made me think he may have enjoyed my solitude for just a moment. Just feels like I should try everything this time, you know.
I think maybe I understand. Do you want to talk about it?
Not really.
Then how about this? We go try some desserts? I saw some sunberry crepes just over there.
She pointed in the direction that they had just walked from. Together we backtracked and found the stall Mitsu had remembered. I busied myself by trying to figure out what could be bothering him. My first thought was the school incident he had brought up earlier. I don't think so. I mean, it's been a year.
Wow, this one is really cute.
She pointed at an ice cream crepe coated with blue and pink sprinkles. I thought about how much it seemed to fit her image. It was strange for. When was it that I had learned so much about her? Was I listening in more than I thought? Was I only making interference? What did I wanted to say? Inferences based on what I had already seen. I know, I feel like my night recording is really not going to well. I wish I could always record during the day only. Mitsu retrieved several coins from her bag and handed them to the cashier after ordering 2 different crepes. When she received them, she thrust one out in front of her towards Hideki.
Take this as thank you for covering me at the cafe when I left my wallet at home.
Oh. No. I was happy to pay for it. Besides, maybe we had it off went.
Please, I'll feel it better if you take it. Besides, I already bought it. Don't make a girl eat both of them.
Reluctantly, he took the strawberry and ice cream crepe. I couldn't taste it, but she seemed to enjoy the sweet dessert. It was just another one of those things I missed living for. Beautiful flowers bloomed against the night sky, bringing an imitation of daylight to the earth below them. I'm so glad I lowered the sound now, because that would be super loud for sure, the explosions. Those that wilted were soon replaced with another brilliant blossom. 2 bodies stood side by side, watching the petals come to life before falling to the ground.
I like you.
Despite those precious and important words spoken for her, she remained loyal to the fireworks above. With every explosion, I wished that the dying embers would take me with them. If he was happy, I would be fine with dying just for knowing it. I just didn't want to endure this pain anymore. I was tired. So tired.
Oh, did you say something?
Was it possible that I was the only one to hear his confession? He scratched his rabbit red cheek and looked around.
Nothing important.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one way to brush off the confession there, right?
Oh, come on, I'm curious now.
Oh, she didn't hear really.
I'll tell you when you're grown up.
I mean, she's only in university now. Yo. Technically, she's the adult there. Mitsu pouted at his side as he laughed it off. A few seconds later, she returned to her more composed self.
Understood.
In the corner of her eyes, she caught a glimpse of her mother and father waving.
Oh, that would be my parents.
She faced back towards Hideki and grasped tightly on her drawstring back again.
You could come with us.
Thanks, but I think I'm not really feeling great.
He chuckled shyly.
Must have been all of that food. I'm going to head home for tonight.
I suppose I'll see you later then.
Yeah. Hey, we're still on studying at your place tomorrow, right?
Of course.
Alright, tell your parents I said thanks.
Mitsu nodded firmly with a smile stretched across her thin lips.
Later, Mitsu.
Good night, Hideki.
The disembodied voice returned to whisper its advice to me that night. After hearing Hideki's confession, I was a little more willing to listen. This time, it needed only to mutter a single sentence. Come on, girl, don't.
Maybe this is the key to the prison.
Don't listen to it. All this time I was looking for a reason. I had come to reside in Mitsu specifically. A curse? Yes. A lesson? No. A haunting? Yes. Everything fell to a similar cause. Unfinished business. Oi. I mean, we played Vanilla Garden of Judgment. There was some unfinished business. Actually, not really unfinished business, but that's kinda, I guess, similar case. There was something in life that I should have done first before parting. It must have been that. To be here in Mitsu's body, I thought that it must have been relevant to the situation. For a feeling it might have been my jealousy. I couldn't resolve myself to give up on Hideki as long as I had any sort of chance to tell him how I felt. Okay, I don't want to be rude, but girl, you are dead. If only I could confess to him myself. So what, you were going to possess Mitsu's body and confess? And that would be great, right? And what? You'll be pretending you are Mitsu for the end of her life? That's ridiculous. Anyway, any answer should be good enough for me to move on. After all, what else did I have left? I brushed her fingers across the beams on her bedroom window. Cold metal bit beneath sharp fingertips. And nothing more. I left it at that for now. I hope you left it for that. A cool morning sun peeked above the mountains in the distance, dyeing the world in ethereal blues, pinks, and oranges. Mitsu was still fast asleep, her alarm tucked quietly away for the summer holidays. Her parents slept peacefully in their rooms after a long night at the summer festival. Legs that felt a million miles long wobbled beneath me. I thought it would be like riding a bike, but I would never forget how to walk. However, I struggled with the limbs beneath me. With some time, I was able to control them enough to lose my way down some vaguely unfamiliar streets. Her house was a few streets down from Hideki's. If I could just find his street, then finding my way back home would be simple. I never thought for a moment that I would be walking this path again. I had given it up. I had given up so much. Arms swinging beside me felt much heavier than I remembered arms being. It served as a reminder that this body wasn't mine to take, but the feeling of life was tempting and sweet. Surely, it must be okay for me to indulge just this one time. In life, I tried to avoid this place as much as I could. A tiny little second-floor apartment that never felt like home. Stairs that once seemed too short now felt like an eternity. Wait, are you going back to your household? Why? Even if I needed to be here, I still hesitated to reach for the handle on the door. The only thing to greet me was a pungent stench as the door peeled open. My parents would be at their jobs at this time of day. It was like for me that I knew they kept the door unlocked. Something that once seemed so terrifying was now fit for my advantage. Once inside, it was clear that I had been the only person keeping the tide of garbage and dishes at bay. Oh yeah, that's true. Even if anyone had come in to rob the place, it would be difficult to find and walk away with anything of value. There were still empty boxes on the counters from before I died. Such a difficult thought, and even more difficult to admit it to myself. I shut it out of my mind and stepped further into the dark apartment. I feel like a stranger here. In the end, I suppose I couldn't even call this place I lived anymore. The next candle I approached, I opened with less hesitation. To my surprise, my bedroom was untouched. Even the manga I was reading the night before was still open to the page I had left it on. Dust had gathered in the open spine, sprinkled with hair from some animal we had never owned. In the corner, my laptop still glowed against the floor, contributing to the only semblance of life left in this room. This room had been my sanctuary, my oasis. No one ever stepped foot into it, except for me. I don't know why I thought it would be packed up or converted. Instead, I came to the realization that, like in life, I was ignored even in death. After all, I had been an accident to begin with. No, that wasn't the word. A mistake. I was a mistake. Holy shit. It was a green card marriage. Oh, for fuck's sake. My father from the United States sought out a way to stay in Japan to fuel his otaku obsession. My mother just happened to be the first person to connect him. Wow. The two of them became lazy and began to do the bare minimum. Two staying together out of habit rather than ever forming any real bonds. Somewhere down the line I was born. Once I was old enough to understand what they were saying to me, I realized that they only thought of me as a financial burden. It was no different for them than having to pay the overdue utility bill. Wow. I was better off locked in this sanctuary by myself. They were better off. From beneath a bare bed, scattered with sheets, I uncovered a plastic bin that housed my spare school uniform. I wanted to call heads to him as me. I wanted him to see me this one last time. As I attempted to dress a body that was mine, I realized that the measurements were slightly off. The plaid skirt was just slightly too short. The white blouse barely fit around her bust. This unfamiliar body was beginning to feel a lot more like my own as I saw it in those familiar clothes. I finished it off by tying the ribbon around the neck of the blouse. It was enough though. This was only playing dress up. A small light flashed next to my half-dressed bed. I instinctively grabbed the phone from the charger to check the message without thinking too much on how it had arrived there. Okay, are you okay? Your parents said you never came home. You didn't answer any of our calls. Hideki is really worried. He said he had a bad feeling after you left. Please answer, let us know you're okay. Damn. I mean, at least you see now that she really wanted to get on a friendly terms with you. I suddenly became aware of the heart beating in her chest. There was an ache in it that I was trying so hard to ignore. I didn't want to think that maybe someone actually cared about me, especially not her. Shoving the phone to my pocket, I left the room behind, feeling much worse about what I was doing. On the way back, I passed by the school. No one was there. The silence around the courtyard felt like the school had been abandoned the moment I left it. I didn't miss it. Or maybe I did. I couldn't remember the face of the people in our class or the name of my teacher. I wondered how much time I had spent away from my life. Even if I had seen them, I know how many days had passed. The afterlife I was leading made it feel much longer, like this world was on a different clock. There weren't any clues here, so I wasn't sure why I came this way. Despite knowing the roads from here, somehow I still managed to lose my way. It seemed like every corner I turned always led me back to Hideki's house. I checked the time on my phone and realized that Mitsu had missed breakfast. Her family would have left for the jobs by now. Hideki was scheduled to arrive soon as well. When I looked back up from it, I saw I had already arrived. I stumbled through the hallway into the first floor bathroom. This house was more familiar than my own now. As I reached for the scissors, I heard a familiar voice calling from the front door.
Mitsu, are you here?
I cut at her bangs. Hair fell in the sink below.
What are you doing?
It was unfortunate timing. I had hoped to finish the transformation before he arrived.
Why would you do that?
Are you okay? The front door was open.
Another cut. I used to cut my own hair, by the way.
Yeah, I'm fine.
His voice sounded a lot different than mine of her or hers. It was jarring to hear that the voice escaping these lips was not the same as the voice in my head. I had to remember this was my body to begin with. I tried to raise the pitch of my words to imitate her.
I'll be out in a minute. Why did you wait in the living room?
But I was already hearing his footsteps dig deeper into the house.
Actually, this might be easier to say through a door.
Why couldn't he just do as he was told?
I just thought you should know that what I was trying to say at the festival last night. I have feelings for you, Mitsu.
My heart dropped as I heard the muffled words through the door. I leaned against it and sighed.
I'd rather talk face to face about this. Give me a minute.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, just don't leave me hanging.
Footsteps softly retreated back to the front of the house, leaving me to my methods. Tears welled up despite trying so hard to fight them back. I mean, this should be enough of an answer for her, really. Another cruel punishment. The day I chose to confess him, he had already decided to confess to her. It seemed as if it happened every time. Could I not escape this fate? If it wasn't for her, would I have been even his first choice? I mean, theorizing about that doesn't make sense. Through tear-soaked eyes, I stood up and hacked away furiously at the hair to make it look more like mine. Why did everything have to turn into a mess? Why was my life so full of messes? I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I felt like for at least one more day I wanted to live. I wanted to exist. Why was it today? Why? 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 Wait. Okay, this is freaking AK-47. Why? I threw the scissors in the sink and let nails dig into her palms through her clenched fist. It wasn't supposed to be this way. At least she didn't do anything like really stupid. Memories spilled through my thoughts, but they weren't mine. Scenes I had never witnessed through my own eyes, or through hers mingled with those I did recognize. Mitsu was probably drunk like I had been this entire time. Was this her way of trying to ask me to think of her?
Do you really have to go?
The boy in the seat in front of her nodded. Behind them, the sun was beginning to set behind the skyline. Ah, there was someone else for her.
When summer ends, I'll be right back here in Japan.
I'm just worried, that's all.
He reached out and took her slender hand in his.
I'll be fine, I promise. When I get back, I'll take you to a real theme park.
Even if we just came back here, I'd be happy, as long as I get to be with you.
The Ferris wheel stopped at the top. The car swayed slightly. Mitsu moved to the bench beside him and took out her phone.
Just a picture to remember us while you're away.
I realized why she was showing this memory to me. Mitsu already had someone she loved. She was waiting for them. Hideki's feelings were unrequited. Even if I wanted him to want me, I always wanted him to be happy. His feelings for Mitsu made him happy. Those things were inevitably going to be crushed. I knew that now. I despaired for his coming pain. In the end, I felt no happiness that Mitsu was not going to choose him. I love him. I hoped that she could hear me. I need someone to. It wasn't right of me to have taken over her body like this. Yeah. There was no justice in a dead girl telling someone that she loved them either. It would only be painful and I was only thinking of myself. Trapping someone in the same version of hell that I wanted to escape was cruel. I came to wasn't the light turned on earlier? It's like it's off now. I came to understand that this pain was mine alone to bear. There was no selfless way out. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a person I had changed. I saw a person I had tried to erase, even briefly. I actually don't see any changes, but yeah. The person staring back at us was not quite her and not quite me. I hope that this new look would at least serve as a temporary reminder of the girl who once lived. As I returned this changed body to its owner, the world around began to grow unfamiliar. My thoughts became fractured. If this was the end of my existence, it wasn't a bad way to go. I merely forgot that I was part of the world. Will we find out what she says to him, or... I guess not. Encore Summer Extra Act. Oh, extra act. Interesting. I mean, as I said, this thing is a part of a bigger project, right? That is currently in development, right? By Noraneko Games, exactly. And if you go from the link of the game, of course, Encore Summer, that is in the description, because I always give the link as long as it's a safe link. Oh, the music, nice. You can check out the store page of it right now, right? And it says it's in the features, right? Part of the, I probably will butcher it, Mise en Scène storyline. And that thing, if you view basically the whole thing when it comes to Noraneko games, you scroll to the which section? First, second, third section, there is the game there, right? And yes, it's currently under development, and yes, it's absolutely cute as well. It seems like there might be 4 girls in this game. Interesting. I wonder what this main game will be about exactly. I'm not going to read. I give my sword to you, for it is the blood that runs through my veins. I hope that you never make the same mistakes I did. Yeah. Understandable. Oh boy. That was a good game. Not gonna lie. I mean, I did not read the description really much. You know, I knew that, you know, I knew what I said I knew earlier in the video, but I did not expect such a turn of events there, that she would basically, end her life. Then again, we don't really know how did end exactly ended, right? God damn it, I'm curious about that now. But yeah, overall a very good game, I'm gonna lie. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think, if you would end up in someone else's body, what would you do, right? Would you try to take over? Or would you... Okay, we unlocked actually everything, I know. There are 6 CGs in this game, not more. I mean, I guess this might be like... for that main game that is in development as well, you know, the design here, who knows. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to bed because it's after 3 AM and I actually don't feel like starting anything else now. Maybe tomorrow I'll start something bigger, or should I still continue with the H.io games? I'm not sure, man. I kinda enjoy going through those short games for. Anyway, let's end here. Hope you guys enjoyed. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.